Entering the atmosphere in T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. My name is Andy Spiteri. Back after a little vacation. Joined by my pal Doom Animal Crossing. What's up, Doom? How you doing?
He's back!
I'm back!
How are you doing, man? Actually, you just asked me how I'm doing, so I should probably answer that first before immediately handing that back to you. But yeah, I'm doing all right. Putting in some job applications. A lot of really good positions in my area opened up. And they're continuously opening up over the week. So I've been grinding out the job apps, and yeah, I'm hoping I get one of those back. Because yeah, that would be a pretty huge opportunity for me. But
have your weekend.
But yeah,
back
otherwise,
again.
We talked about this backstage, but like, man, I didn't realize how much I would miss weekends going in, because I just figured, oh, the job market's butt cheeks, like, everyone's got like, a bad job, everyone's schedule's all over the place, so who cares if I don't have weekends. Actually, turns out weekends are pretty important. Most of my friends, it turns out they all have weekends off, and so it actually does make socializing a bit more difficult than I anticipated. And so I'm eagerly awaiting to get my weekends back. I'm eagerly awaiting to have some paid holidays again. And overall, just a job that's more me. I certainly don't hate my job by any means, so like, I'm certainly grateful for what I have. I'm able to live comfortably with my job, but when the opportunity comes to strive for more, I will happily come a knockin'. Otherwise, yeah, we got the Mario movie coming up, which I know we're going to talk about in a bit. Very excited for that. My friends and I were all going up to San Francisco to see the movie. We're actually technically down to San Francisco from where I'm at, but they're coming up to San Francisco from where they live. And yeah, so we're going to do that, tour San Francisco, probably visit the Nintendo San Francisco store again, and yeah, see the Mario Galaxy movie. I'm excited.
Yeah. To go back to weekends. So like I think most people listening to this know, I don't know, Doom, but like, so I worked retail for like 12 years. And so I was always on like a weekend on, weekend off rotation. And so like, that was manageable. Like, you could still do things, you just plan them for your weekend off. But I definitely, it's tough when you're every kind of weekend. Although it is nice to have a day off when everyone else is like working. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's a weekday and I'm not working. So there is that, but I definitely agree with you. So yeah, I hope for your success.
Yeah, it would be one thing if it was like Sunday, Monday, like that would be perfect for me. But yeah, we unfortunately don't get that decision. So yeah, I'm really, really hoping for my weekends back.
Well, I appreciate you covering for me while I was away. I didn't go anywhere. I was just off the show, and I was off the show because, of course, we are celebrating the 20th anniversary of Metroid Prime Hunters, which I'm sure that we've plugged it a few times, but I'll plug it again. We have the single player walkthrough as a companion piece up on the website for the multiplayer walkthrough now. So anybody that's been inspired by the last couple of weeks, OmegaMetroid.com has you covered if you want to play Metroid Prime Hunters. So, and one of the reasons that I took off the last couple weeks is because I really did want it to be a celebration about all things Metroid Prime Hunters. And you know what? I would be the first to admit that, like, I certainly don't dislike Hunters, but I also can't say it's my absolute favorite Metroid game. You know what? The DS era in general just isn't my favorite Nintendo era, just because I think a lot of those games kind of, I don't know, we're over-reliant on the stylus controls, which isn't my preference for controlling a video game. But I was glad that we got Spire Fan in here, we got Dak back, and some really great episodes that came out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we definitely had that conversation before about DS games. I definitely don't agree, but I also understand where you're coming from. Because, like, for me, there definitely are some... Because I know, especially you Zelda's one of your big franchises, and I haven't really played those DS Zelda games. I also haven't heard terrific things about those Zelda games either, so I can definitely imagine when Zelda is like one of your high pillars, if that's not delivering on all fronts, that definitely can bring a console's rating down for you. So I can definitely see it from that point of view. So totally understandable there.
Yeah, like I just when I think of the DS, I'm like, okay, the Zelda games, they were okay. The Metroid game, it was okay. Like the Mario games, like I'm talking just 2D Mario games. Like I thought I wasn't really blown away by New Super Mario Bros. Or anything like that. So I was like, oh, those are okay. So like it's a lot of like okay on there. Actually, you know what? When I think of the DS, like I really think of Castlevania and I think of Ace Attorney as my games that got me through the DS era. Like those are really really great. Obviously not Nintendo games though.
Right. Yeah. For me, it's Mario Kart DS, which is one of my all-time favorite Mario Karts. Animal Crossing Wild World, I also put a ton of hours into. And then Elite Beat Agents as well, which I think is like a super underrated gem. I love Elite. EBA is a phenomenal game.
Yeah, I never played that. I have both. So Wild World is one of the only Animal Crossing games that I own, and I bought it, and that's when I just confirmed. I'm like, Animal Crossing is not for me. It's just not my. It's not my thing, you know. I get why people love it and respect it, but I don't know. It's just never been for me. And yeah, Mario Kart is, it's okay. That one did have Rob the Robot in it though, right? If I'm not mistaken.
It did have Rob the Robot, which is that a segue that I'm sensing?
Well, I am going to be talking about the Minecraft movie on Virtual Theater, which does indeed feature a Rob the Robot, if that's what you're getting at. Cheap plug for Virtual Theater coming up to a podcast service near you. But no, I believe where you're going. I'm assuming that this is in a trailer. I can't confirm this, but I'm assuming you're going to the Mario movie. Is that correct?
I am going to the Mario movie, yes.
So, very excited for you and your pals going to it. I haven't bought tickets or anything yet, but I'll definitely be seeing it probably sometime within the next couple of days when it comes out. I will like. I'm not gonna say like I'm not excited. Like I'm looking forward to seeing it, but I'm also not like super pumped if I'm being totally honest. Whereas like I think with like the Mario Bros movie that came out a few years ago, you're kind of just excited to see like what's Chris Pratt gonna sound like what is this gonna look like kind of like in motion, like what's the animation gonna look like. Whereas like I think we have like the very clear established blueprint and we know what we're getting for this movie. So I'm still like looking forward to it. I think it'll be fun for what it is. I can't say I'm like busting down the doors excited for it, but yeah, like I'll definitely be there opening weekend at some point for sure.
I think I'm in the same boat. I know a lot of people were having like this wild speculation, like, oh my gosh, is Mario Galaxy going to completely fix all the issues with the first movies? I'm like, no, it's probably going to be everything about the first movie, everything you loved, everything you didn't love about the first movie, but kind of like, blown up to 100. And from the early previews, that sounds exactly like what it is. Which I mean, that's what I was expecting, and so it's like
you're definitely going to get like I Need a Hero or Danger Zone or something in this movie,
right?
Like for sure.
But you're also going to get like a ton of like really cool Mario music on top of that, some really gorgeous visuals. Probably not a super compelling story, but again, yeah, I know what I'm getting into and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And I will say more of what I'm excited for is like the trip and like, watching it with friends, not necessarily like critique and analyze the movie itself, because I mean it's totally. It's a sequel to the Mario movie. It's
Yeah. You know what you're getting. You know what? Like, and if you go in, if you're just like, the Mario Galaxy movie is gonna fix all the issues with the first movie, you're gonna be in for a rude awakening. But if you go in eyes open and know what this movie is, and frankly, for people like us, Doom, like half the enjoyment is just gonna be like, oh, hey, there's a little reference, there's a little Easter egg, there's a little something for me. Exactly. Like that's kind of what you're looking for. It's not exactly like the most robust movie experience when you're just kind of Easter egg hunting, but like at least it's something. So that's kind of cool. And I will say a big piece of news that just dropped, and there was some debate, not only in Omega Metroid, but on Zelda Dungeon as well. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say, if you're one of those people that's super hypersensitive to anything coming out before the movie is out, you better skip forward a couple minutes, because we're gonna be talking about. I don't consider it a spoiler, but some do. So this is your warning right now. Last chance. Okay,
3,
but
2, 1.
Do a barrel roll. We had our first promotional image of the rumored and now confirmed appearance of Fox McCloud. Star Fox flying into the Super Mario Bros. Galaxy movie makes a lot of sense, I think. I really like that they promoted this ahead of time. Like, I think that it's done really big things for the Star Fox name, the Star Fox brand. Some people were upset that they just like didn't let the surprise play out in the movie, and I can appreciate that. But you're definitely not getting the same level of conversation around Fox and Star Fox if that happens during the movie, because there's going to be so much else coming out of the movie that you are probably going to be talking about as well. So I'm definitely not team spoiler. I mean, like, I think anything like in the promotional marketing, like, we have to draw a line somewhere, people, and that's just something I'm just not gonna ever say as a spoiler. But pretty cool. Like, I was actually, I'll be honest with you, Fox was more exciting to me than anything I've seen in the Mario movie. Like, it made me want to go see the Mario movie a little bit more urgently, because I was like, this is cool. I wonder who else might be there, if anyone, and if not, that's cool. I just want to see Fox, and they got a great stunt casting for Fox McCloud as well. You've got Glenn Powell, who is on the ascent right now, I think, in Hollywood. So really good stuff all around.
Yeah, Glenn Powell's kind of like the perfect choice for Fox. Like, they announced that, and I'm like, yep, I see all of that. That's kind of perfect. So
I thought it was great.
Definitely, yeah. So I'm definitely excited to see, what he sounds. I'm assuming he's going to sound like Glenn Powell. Ooh, but yeah, I'm definitely like, I don't know. On one hand, like, everyone. There's no definitive word for spoiler. Every single piece of the movie, someone is going to consider a spoiler, and some people are not. So I don't really think that's a conversation that really gets us anywhere. I think it's more just like, hey, is this a piece of information we would have rather had or not? And for me, I personally would have liked it to be a surprise, but at the same time, it's the Mario Galaxy movie. Who cares? I'm it's not gonna lessen my enjoyment of it by any means. But yeah, now that it's out there, this is killer news. Definitely has me wondering, because it definitely seems like this is more than just like a little background Easter egg. I mean, they cast Glenn Powell, so I imagine he's not going to play a major role in the movie, but obviously he's gonna be doing something in there. And so obviously the big question now is, like, we got Fox, we got Rob, we got the Pikmin all in the Mario Galaxy movie. Are we actually setting up a Smash Bros. Universe? I'm gonna still say no for now, but yeah, it does. A year ago I would have said absolutely not. This is strictly Mario Universe, but now I'm starting to raise my eyebrow, Andy. I'm not gonna lie.
I like. Why not? Why wouldn't you? Why else would you introduce a lot of these characters, right? Like, as much as I am so tired of like the shared universe stuff, and I think in a lot of ways it like really inhibits your ability to tell like a good standalone story, as we've seen in many Marvel movies, not all of them, but many of them. And definitely, man, do you remember those Spider-Man movies, like from like 2013, 14 or whatever, that were trying to set up like Venom and Sinister Six and like all this stuff?
Oh my god.
And it was just it was like bursting at the seams, and I was like, dude, just tell me a good Peter Parker story here. Like,
I will say that first Venom movie I actually did really enjoy. I know that one's not everyone's cup of tea, but I really enjoyed that first Venom movie. Did not enjoy any of the sequels, though. They did not capture what I loved about the first movie, unfortunately.
If you go into Venom with the right mindset, you can come out with a good time. But
right.
but anyway, so like, I mean, like, yeah, like, I think we're all a little bit tired of the shared universe concept, and it definitely fails more often than it works. It's really arguably only worked once. But I mean, if it's gonna work a second time, it's probably gonna be with this roster of characters that you really like. So like, now the only thing is, even if you look at the original like roster of Smash Bros characters, I think you gotta rule out the Pokemon. I don't know if they're gonna be able to come over just because of the Pokemon Company and their own. I don't know. I don't know what that relationship is, but like whatever it is, it seems like there's a little bit of separation there. But like, I honestly like the only people that you could maybe say are like a little bit outside of the box of like an Illumination movie are like Samus and Link. Like, I don't even think they're that outside the box. Like, I could totally see like a movie where you have Samus show up and she's kind of just this like badass warrior, and Link is kind of like cell shady cartoony, and that's totally fine. And like, I mean, the rest of the people in there, like, you know, how easy would it be to have the Ice Climber show up or Kirby show up or you know, like we got half the roster of the original Smash Bros in there, like Captain Falcon and Ness, like those guys would be easy peasy to do. So like I actually like, you know, some people, you know, don't want to dream too big about a Smash Bros movie. I'm saying like I think it's probably going to happen at some point. Why not?
I mean, I guess we'll see what those post-credit scenes reveal. Because I mean, if anything is going to set up a shared cinematic universe, it would be the post-credit scene, as history would dictate.
Yeah, I mean, like in the, you know, in the first movie, you got your Yoshi, and then like, I mean, my God, like I actually kind of thought the movie would be mostly about Yoshi, but then like, and I thought they would kind of follow the plot of Super Mario World, but then you've got like Baby or Bowser Jr. and Rosalina, and like this movie seems like it has a lot going on, like Wart, like it seems like it's packed with a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, I think everyone was kind of expecting Mario World to be kind of the natural sequel, but nope, it's Mario Galaxy. Also has a bit of Mario Odyssey in there. Like there's that scene in the kingdom where they're riding their scooters in the Toast Arena Kingdom. So that looks
dinosaurs
awesome
in
too,
there.
by the
They've
way.
got baby Luigi and Mario. There's a lot of stuff in this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. So
we'll see how it
yeah,
goes.
I'm excited for the movie on that regard. Very curious to see if they do indeed go the full Smash Brothers route.
I could see it, even if you look at the roster from Melee. I think the only like really tonally out of bounds characters are like your Fire Emblem, your Samus, your Link, and even that, like, man, you can make that work, no problem. So yeah. it would feel a little bit sad to not have like the Pokemon in there, but hey, what are you gonna do? Maybe we'll get Link from the Legend of Zelda cartoon series of 1989.
I know that's what you really want. Yeah, you want Link. And then the Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong from the Donkey Kong cartoon. I know that's what you really want.
Dude, can you imagine if the post-credit scene of the Super Mario Galaxy movie, off screen, you just hear like, "Excuse me, princess." I would legitimately stand up, take my shirt off, and like start waving it around my head. That would be so unbelievable. Anyways, so we'll have some thoughts about the Super Mario Bros. Movie when it comes out. Looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun. We do have a piece of news to get to before we talk a little bit about Metroid Prime Hunters here today. We should talk about Nintendo and their changes to their digital pricing. And you might have to fact check me a bit here, but I believe it's only for now their digital pricing. So,
correct.
Yoshi and the Mysterious Book is going to be the first title that this is going to be impacting, but Nintendo has committed to keeping physical copies of their games at $70 USD, which I believe is the current going rate for pretty much every physical Switch 2 game at this point, whereas digital titles are going to be $10 cheaper, $60 USD, with the reason being production and distribution costs. So, you know, Doom, like on the surface, this seems like a win for customers, and like in some ways it is. Like there's definitely positive aspects about this, but I do got to say, like, I don't like it. I don't like the precedent that this sets, because how long until the price goes up and digital is the same as like digital is $70 and physical is an extra $10 or an extra $20. I think that is the ultimate goal. I mean, the ultimate goal here clearly is to phase out physical games, which, you know, is certainly not just a Nintendo directive. I think you've seen that shift in the last, I might even say like 15-ish years, if not more. And so, like, I understand it. I don't like it. I don't like the precedent, and Yeah, I just think it leads down like kind of a dark path that you're gonna get yourself into, where like, it's like ordering from Amazon. A lot of people don't like to order from Amazon, but like, man, sometimes it's like it's so much cheaper and it's so much more convenient. How can you not? But by principle, you don't want to, and that's kind of the conflict that you're getting into. But it certainly does open up that world where everything that you own, like, you don't really own. You have to subscribe to, you have to buy multiple times. And we're seeing that already. Like, I think Nintendo Switch Online is a great service, but certainly I would love the option to download some of these titles to own them forever.
My big question is, I need to see this with like a full release title. So like I'm curious, like, what Fire Emblem, for example, is going to look like with this pricing structure, because I think beforehand, Yoshi is one of those games where I could definitely see that being like a game that's like not your full $70 title. That's like maybe like
I don't
60
think so. I think that's going to be like, I think it's traditionally always been your full price title.
Right. But like I want to see what that's going to look like. So like for example, Fire Emblem is like always like charging full price right out of the gate for that. I think I want to say Crafted World was full price when it came out, but Woolly World was not. And you could say, well, that's the Wii U, and sure, but like I don't know. Yoshi's been very inconsistent with its pricing. Fire Emblem is an example of one that has been pretty consistent. Like, it's like Fire Emblem games have typically always charged full price for their games. So I'm curious what that's going to look like on like your more heavy hitters, so to speak, on the pricing structure. Because maybe it could just be where like, hey, all of Nintendo's big games you can get for $10 cheaper on digital now. Or it could just be this example of Yoshi where it looks like that, but in reality, you're actually paying $80 for the physicals going forward if they do consider that digital kind of the starting price point, so to speak, of these games. And there was a lot of conversations going. Right, and there was a huge conversation going about this, obviously, when Mario Kart World came out, because if you don't get it in the bundle, you're paying $80 for that here in the States. What's that, like $90 or $100 in Canada?
It's like $110 to buy Mario Kart World. It's crazy. Like Metroid,
$110.
Yeah, Metroid Prime 4 cost $100 Canadian. Like that. Like,
yeah,
that's
for
nuts.
the Switch 2 edition.
Yeah, so I go back to when Tears of the Kingdom came out. That game was just $10 more, just like because.
Right.
There was no reason for it, right? How long until the next, like when the next 3D Zelda comes out, I fully expect it to be, digital is actually going to cost $70 and physical is going to cost $90. And then the justification for Tears of the Kingdom was, well, there's just so much content in this game that we had to do this. And I think you're just going to see that applied to every game from now on. So like, I do think that creating that different tiered structure is ultimately a bad thing, because like the less that you physically own, like, I mean, like, hopefully this never happens, but like if there's some catastrophic event where like the data centers that hold the information to get you these games, if you are really only subscribing them, or even if you downloaded them, but you have, like, I purchased so many games, songs for Rock Band 2 on my Wii that I just like don't have access to because that server is shut down. Now 3DS and Wii U, if you purchase that software, you still have access to it as long as your console works. But like it's tough. Like I acknowledge that there's definitely some perks for like gamers that want to just keep it digital and not necessarily have to bear the burden of those production costs and whatever have you. But and you know what, it also raises the question too of like games that are sold as game keys. Like if you're buying a game, a Pokopia, have you been playing a lot of Pokopia, Doom?
I can't say that I have. No,
I haven't either. It's Animal Crossing is not my thing, and neither is Pokemon Crossing. But Allison has played a lot of Pokopia, and she bought the game, and she bought it physical, but it's a game key. And so, like, now, like, what possible incentive would anybody have to buy a physical GameKey game because you're not getting the physical cartridge. You're paying more for a case, and you're getting all of the drawbacks, but none of the perks of either option here. So that option, I feel like, just became like even worse than it already was, and it already wasn't great.
Well, to be fair, so this is just Nintendo's first party pricing, and obviously Pokopia is like technically a first party game. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's the only example we've seen of a first party game that's had the game key cart.
It might be, yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of my thing. It's just I need to see more of this and to see where it's going before I like jump to any conclusions. I mean, either way, the tech space is looking very bleak right now with like thankfully we're starting to finally see the AI bubble pop, but like because of all that, like, you know, prices have just gone soaring across the board, specifically because of memory related items. I mean, we just, you know, we're talking about price increases. You know, Sony just announced that all of their PlayStation 5 models are going up like $200.
That's crazy.
Or excuse me, $150 after the $50 increase that they already had a few months ago, totaling at about $200 now. The PlayStation 5 Pro is going to be $900
like
by the time
bucks.
this podcast releases.
Oh.
That's ridiculous. And so yeah, I'm, you know, just, am I optimistic? Absolutely not. It's looking bleak out there, but yeah, I just need to see where this goes first before I like really jump to any conclusions.
I mean, like, I feel confident. Like, my conclusion is that this is bad. Like, I think that
it's probably bad, but
yeah.
It's like I need to see it. I need to see it being bad before I can actually say so.
Yeah, I think, like, pretty much in my mind, anything that creates like a tiered difference is bad. Like, because at that point you were clearly driving people towards one avenue versus the other, and I think that, you know, anyone with a Netflix account can probably relate to the amount of price increases that have happened. And hey, like, having Netflix sure beats having to get up and pop in the DVDs and stuff like that, but you're paying for it. So all right, let's move on and let's talk about Metroid Prime Hunters. And so, Doom, I have said before, Metroid Prime Hunters is not my favorite Metroid game. It's not my least. You know, there's not really an awful Metroid game. All of them are, some are better than others, but like I would say the controls for Metroid Prime Hunters are you know, something that does hold it back for me. So we wanted to take this day today and talk about, hypothetically, what we would ever want. I'm not going to say in a Metroid Prime Hunters remake, but we might just use that word to colloquially refer to if Nintendo ever tried the Metroid Prime Hunters concept again, which is a more multiplayer, first-person shooter specific type of Metroid game. And we'll talk about a few things, and I am going to, like, I have a pitch, and my scenario is basically based on Metroid Prime Hunters, but this could be, you know, depending on a lot of different things, this could just work for anything that Nintendo tried to do. But I think that so I want to talk about what we would want to see if they tried this again, and I think I have a lot of like ideas for me personally, as like, I would say a moderate first person shooter fan. I like myself a good first person shooter. Not really into multiplayer necessarily, but we can discuss some things that I would be hoping to see, and certainly go over some things that you would be looking for if this concept should ever return as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of envisioning is this like, hey, Nintendo revives Project Valkyrie from the depths of Next Level Games. They're bringing it back, and this is what's going on. That's kind of how I'm envisioning it.
I think so too. Yeah. So let's begin. The first thing that we should obviously say, and this will go without saying, but we'll say it anyways, Doom. It's been 20 years and a lot of console iterations since Metroid Prime Hunters debuted on the Nintendo DS. So obviously, this is going to take advantage of playing with a real controller. That is the thing that ails Metroid Prime Hunters for me. I think for many, the controls were certainly a barrier. So we are just going to pretend that, man, you've got dual analog. You've maybe even got another option there. You could do like the Wii kind of play if you really want to. Let's just pretend that there's a lot of different control options out there for people, however they want to play this game. So, however you prefer to play it is going to be an option in this game. I think that is the baseline standard that we need to achieve for this remake. Let's just say.
Yeah, and like you said, that pretty much goes without saying, and that's a pretty obvious change. I feel like would happen. I don't even think it's possible to have like DS style controls on like the Switch 2 because you can't really use it as a tablet while looking at the TV screen. So yeah, I think dual analog would be there. You'd probably have your gyro controls as well if you want to fine tune your aiming. You probably also have mouse controls as well if this is coming out on Switch 2. Yeah. So yeah, I think controls are going to be acceptable across the board for everyone.
Yes. So not even going to spend any more time on that. Controls are going to be awesome. We just know that going forward. So my thought on where I think Metroid Prime Hunters falters a little bit is that it doesn't commit to what it is or what it wants to be. And in my remake, we are just going all in, and we are going to embrace being a first-person shooter. And what I mean is that typically in most first-person shooters, you will have, a single player and a multiplayer campaign. Multiplayer is just a collection of maps. Some do it better than others. We don't need to touch on multiplayer necessarily right now. I'm more so focused on single player. And I think that the drawback of Metroid Prime Hunters, like I said, it didn't go all in, and it tried to give you a traditional Metroid Prime experience on hardware that didn't support a traditional Metroid Prime experience. And I think that was the one of the undoings of this game. And like Metroid Prime Hunters kind of exists in this like weird, like, is it a spin-off? Is it not a spin-off? Like we don't know quite what it is territory. Whereas like you even fast forward 10 years and you see a game like Metroid Prime Federation Force, and like the gameplay is very specific and like very, it breaks it down into missions and stuff like that. And this is very clearly like, this is a spin-off title with a different gameplay loop than your traditional Metroid Prime. So I would definitely define that. And my first action would actually be, I'm not going to have like a bunch of planets that you can go to and scan things and all that kind of stuff. I'm basically going to copy like Doom. Like not Doom Animal Crossing, but Doom, the game, where I'm gonna have like segmented levels where you go in, you have objectives, you have maybe some collectibles that you can find, but nothing like a traditional Metroid Prime experience. I'm just going all in. This is a spin-off first-person shooter. Let's just treat it like a spin-off first-person shooter.
Okay, I think you still can have a traditional Metroid Prime style single player campaign. I actually really like the Doom comparison though, because especially going to the more modern games, there's actually a lot of influence from the modern games that's taken from Metroid Prime, even though those levels are still segmented.
Totally.
There's a lot of backtracking within those levels, especially if you're looking for like all of the collectibles hidden throughout the levels. There's lots of alternate paths. There's just a lot of really fun like labyrinthian level design that's reminiscent of that original Metroid Prime trilogy, except they're just kind of bottlenecked and contained within a level-to-level basis. So yeah, I absolutely think if you really want to just commit to that first-person bit, I think that's a really great template to go from, just from a level design standpoint.
Yeah, and like that's kind of what I was thinking, is like Doom is a really good template for that, because there is platforming, but there's not like too much. But you can kind of get off the beaten trail and find some collectibles, find some things, whatever. I would not have like expansions as we know them in Metroid. I wouldn't have, I might have lore, but I wouldn't have you scan it. It would appear another way, and I would do like you're right, Doom. You could do a traditional Metroid Prime experience, but I'm going to get to the second thing that I would do in a revisited Metroid Prime Hunters concept, and I'm going to approach this from my perspective playing Metroid Prime Hunters back in 2006. So when I was playing, I had my DS, and my DS wasn't my favorite console already. And, one of the things that I was disappointed in was like, oh man, there's all these kind of cool characters in this game. I can't play really as a whole lot of them without playing multiplayer. It was just a little bit harder to do. And so if I am going to commit to having a Metroid Prime Hunters like concept revisit, let's call it, and for the purposes of my example here, I'm just going to say remake. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have segmented levels, and so like level 1, you're playing as Samus, but level 2, you're playing as Silex, and then level 3, you're playing as Trace. And you have, let's call it 30 levels in the game, and like you get to play from the different perspectives and different hunters for each level. So like, and there might even be like bonus levels that you can unlock. Maybe it's the same level, but from a different hunter's perspective. And I think that like really opens up the floodgates for like what you can do, and like it kind of allows you to play around with different weapons, different characters. I think it allows you to tell a much more engaging story rather than just kind of following Samus around a lot. I think that was the missing ingredient for Metroid Prime Hunters, is the single player campaign was kind of just a watered down version of a Metroid Prime experience, whereas this is, one, completely different, but two, man, it's giving you the chance to play as like someone completely new. Because like I was watching you guys play at the Omega Metroid Marathon, and like I was like, this looks great, like this is really fun. It's too bad we didn't get to do this in the base game. So that would be the change I would make like right away.
I love that idea, and I'm all for that pitch right there. I think, yeah, and see, I obviously when you think of Metroid Prime Hunters, the bread and butter is that multiplayer experience. I still enjoy and appreciate the single player campaign for what it is, but it's definitely, it's definitely not up to the same quality as that multiplayer component. And I think you touch on something important. There's definitely a big discrepancy between that single player and the multiplayer. The single player is obviously very limited because of the time dedicated to it, the hardware it's on, but also because there's aspects of that single player that doesn't translate fully into multiplayer. It doesn't even translate into all. You brought up the scan visor. That's something that's just not present in multiplayer at all. Now, I think it would be much cooler rather than ditching the scan visor. I think it would be much cooler to bring the scan visor into multiplayer and find a way to kind of turn that into a cool multiplayer centric gameplay perk. But that's for a different topic. Kind of going back to the idea of the hunters, yeah, like that. There's so much art in UI. And abilities dedicated to those hunters that you can really only experience in the multiplayer component. That you might see a little taste of that in a single player, but you'll never be able to see it from their perspective. And so yeah, I think that's definitely like a huge opportunity to get some really unique gameplay that you wouldn't be able to get typically out of a Metroid. We've always talked about like how much we've maybe the rest of the fan base isn't necessarily on board, but like we are like super on board with introducing new playable characters to Metroid. I think a Hunters remake, spin-off, sequel, whatever you want to call it, is like the perfect place to introduce something like that. Absolutely.
Totally. Like I think that would be just like really fun, and like again, like I think if you're gonna revisit this concept, you do kind of want to like really drive home like this is a spin-off, and even if it's a spin-off, like it can still tell a canon story, of course, but like you want to have some separation there. And I feel like Metroid Prime Hunters was trying to serve both masters there, and I'm not going to say it didn't serve the multiplayer master because I didn't play it enough to really make that judgment, but certainly single player, like there's definitely some cool moments in the game, like that's for sure. But I'm also not going to say that it necessarily delivered like what I would want from something called Metroid Prime. And so I would pretty much be like open to, I would be open to having the scan visor come in. I wouldn't be looking for expansions. I think I would want to do something along the lines of like there's, I don't know, call it your 5 different sub weapons that you can find or something like that. And like everybody's main beam, I think, should have like some kind of ammo system, or maybe it's this sub weapon system where like there's the same 5 sub weapons for everybody, but they have different properties when loaded into different hunters like arm cannons. I think that something like that would be kind of cool. Someone smarter than me could probably flesh out how exactly that would work, but I would have them kind of hidden, like almost like in Doom, like when you I don't know, when you find like the BFG somewhere and it's just like, okay, let's go. Like this is gonna augment my arsenal, or like when you find the chainsaw, like some version of that where the properties are different for each hunter, I think would be really cool. I probably would keep the alt forms as well, just because you do want.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You want it to be Metroid, but I would want to be a bit more creative with what they look like.
I also think that's like a huge factor in the multiplayer too. Like the alt forms are like such a huge component of that multiplayer, and that's definitely something that I would want to keep for that. And then kind of going back to our pitch, I would want the single player and multiplayer to be cohesive. So along with that, those alt forms would definitely have to come with it.
Yeah, I think so.
Kind of on that same topic, something that I would love to see is that, when you're playing a Metroid game, you're not just finding weapons, you're finding all sorts of different types of upgrades that augment various abilities beyond just the arm can. You have more ball-centric abilities, you have movement abilities, like the speed booster, one of our all-time favorites. And you don't really get that. And by don't really get that, I mean you don't get that in Metroid Prime Hunters. You have Samus starting off the game with the boost ball, but you don't really find any upgrades, and the boost ball in Hunters, there isn't really any puzzles that require the boost ball. It's just kind of a way to it's used a lot for combat or just for moving through areas a bit quicker. But that's something that I would love to see in our single player campaign that we're crafting here. I would love all of the Hunters not just to be able to find augmented weapons. I'd love them to find different types of abilities that enhance other aspects of them as well. I mean, Weevil, for example, he's got that energy scythe, the Space Pirate energy scythe from Prime 1. And technically he does use that in his alt form. That's one of his attacks, but I mean, like that's really all you get for. I feel like there's like so much more you could do with that if you craft it into ability, or if there's ways to upgrade that energy scythe. And that's just one example. I think all of these hunters, and that's just going off the base roster. If we're doing, a remake or a sequel, we could always introduce new hunters that have their own unique characteristics as well. But yeah, I would love to see augmentations beyond just weapons systems for their respective arm cannons.
Like I guess I'd want to see it, because like my thought is like I don't necessarily want like permanent power-ups. Like I think that they should be found in map, but I'm certainly open to like what that could look like if there were permanent power-ups. And maybe that's just like part of the story that you tell, actually, is like you do, you kind of do like a level of Silex, a level of Trace, a level of Noxus, and you get something that powers you up and allows you to kind of progress in the story. And maybe there's even some way where you can like pick your path, and it's not necessarily in like a sequential order, but you know what, rather actually like Federation Force, where you could pick like your missions on one of the 3 planets. But eventually, and I gotta say, I actually don't mind the idea that Federation Force had when it comes to bosses either, where like not every level needs a boss, and like you just have that one kind of big mission every now and then, which does have that big foe for you to overcome. I don't mind that at all, but I would definitely want to have like lots of segments, again, like in Doom, where you have lots and lots of enemies coming at you. You have the music going, and you need to fight them all off. And then once you've done that, you have your moments of peace. I think that would be like, if you're gonna do the first person shooter spinoff, I think that you should do it, and I think that you should probably look at one of the better like first person shooters of the modern era for inspiration to do that. I have another thing that I think would be really cool as well for this. Doom, pop quiz. What is my favorite first-person shooter of all time?
I know the answer to this. It's Perfect Dark.
That's right. So one of the coolest things that Perfect Dark had is let's talk really quickly. So obviously, like, Perfect Dark had a co-op mode. You would have Joanna Dark, and I think you'd have like Violet Dark. That was her name or something like that. But one of the coolest modes that Perfect Dark had was a counter-operative mode. And man, that would be perfect for a Metroid Prime Hunters concept style remake. And counter-operative mode was basically like two players start when, let's just say that you play as Samus Doom, and I'm like some random geek, and you can kill me with like one bullet, or maybe I am another hunter, and the point is that I try and hunt you down, disrupt your mission progress. With Perfect Dark, you could easily just pick off the enemy, and I, in this case, would respawn as another enemy and kind of random depending on where they are in the map, and I would continually try and interfere with you as you're trying to complete your objectives. I think that would be awesome here, particularly if you are like playing counter-op as another hunter that is on the map, and like so for example, if you're playing the Samus level and Noxus is the one that is called upon to run interference, like I think that would be like really, really fun, and like kind of like a cool multiplayer, but in the single player kind of space. And someone can correct me on this. I haven't seen like a lot of other games that have done that concept, and maybe I'm just not playing the right games, but yeah, I think that'd be really cool.
Andy, I thought you weren't a Dark Souls fan. This is basically Dark Souls what you're describing right now.
Is it? Okay, well, yeah. I haven't played it, but I would never say never.
I haven't played it either, but yeah, that's like a huge part of Dark Souls, is like people being able to invade your games essentially, and then they can either help you or they can try to take you down a peg.
I would help people, Doom. I think that would be like really cool. You could
always trust a smile like that. Yeah, I think that'd be a really, again, a fun, unique component for that kind of hunters concept. I feel like if you were to do that though, it would strictly have to be the hunters themselves doing that, not just like random generic enemies. I feel like that would make the most sense, again, to kind of like, coalesce it more with that multiplayer component. But yeah, I would be super down for something like that. I think there's a lot of potential there.
So, like, another thing that I was kind of thinking of, like, if they do take, like, another crack at this, is I think that, since first-person shooters have come a long way in the last decade, for sure, and I remember, like, as I'm sure some of your favorite parts of playing Halo are, like, man, I'm in the Jeep, I'm in the vehicles, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Like, I think like this is definitely where you want to introduce, like, if you're going to have like some level, like a level by level basis, like I really think you should introduce like ship combat here. You could do it on rails. You could do it like Star Fox if you really wanted to. But like if you're like going with hunters here, like if you are, maybe one of your levels is like you're in Samus's gunship and you are fighting other enemies in there, or maybe you're in the Delano 7, or maybe it's a new character with a new ship. I think that it would be like kind of a cool break in between like quote unquote standard missions and stuff like that. And I think like each level, of course, should still have like its own, like, like I'll go old school here. Like I like my first person shooters where like, agent difficulty has 3 objectives, double agent has 2 or 4 objectives, and double O agent has like 5 objectives or something like that. So I think you could still do that with these ship levels and in levels in general. But I would really like to see some of that like gameplay break introduced in this, because I think that this is kind of the setting for it.
This actually reminds me of a conversation we were just having in the Discord today, where we were kind of discussing like whether or not quote unquote turret segments are outdated in games. And I know Dak and I, we were definitely praising it to a degree, where it's like, hey, in moderation and the right moments, turret segments can actually be like some of the most memorable portions of like games. And particularly when it comes to shooters, one of the first examples that popped up for us was the AC-130 mission in Call of Duty 4, which is just an absolutely... It's both killer, but also just an absolutely haunting level when you take a step back and really look at the context of it. It's one that just absolutely sticks with you for all sorts of different reasons, and it really makes you like think about the experience that you're playing. I'm not necessarily looking for that kind of experience in a Metroid game in terms of like something that's like really making you think on that level, but yeah, I think having these sort of kind of a-traditional segments that are a little bit more removed from your traditional gameplay to break up the pace. And I think if done right, there's a good there's a good pitch in there for sure. And so I'm definitely open to seeing what that would be like. In this case, you're doing ship combat. I think that's a pretty good one, especially if each of the hunters' ships, handles differently, has different specialties. Maybe one ship is like, a guns blazing, and you're just kind of blasting ships all around. Maybe one of the other ships is more fragile, so it's more of like a stealth type of mission, and you're trying to avoid ships and trying to get to this location without being seen. I think there's a lot of cool stuff there for sure.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential for that. And like, obviously the key is, like, you can't overdo it, right? Like, you want to be very selective with how and when you do that. So when in moderation, I think, as you said, it's a really effective break from gameplay loop. But yeah, you don't want to go like too crazy with it. Like, I wouldn't say, like, hypothetically, if you're redoing hunters and you've got 7 hunters, not all of them need to have a ship. You could probably get by with, like, just the 2 ships, and maybe you have, like, I don't know, if you have 30 levels, 4 of them or 5 of them maybe max are ship levels. So it would be my suggestion. But I think that kind of stuff is, like, really cool, because those unexpected breaks in gameplay loop. I mean, like, look at Metroid Zero Mission. The single biggest standout moment in that game is the stealth section, which is a very big departure from your traditional Metroid Zero Mission gameplay.
Yeah, and to be fair, that stealth section doesn't work for everyone, but I know you and I are big fans of it. We love that section.
I think it's the best part of the game, like, for sure.
Yeah, I love it. I'm super down for it.
The other thing, like, I don't really have any ideas about, like, a story for this. Like, it would so depend on, like, what you would want to do. If you'd want to redo Hunters, if you'd want to make a sequel to Hunters, I would be, like, totally open to having, like, the concept come back and it's a sequel. I don't know if you could do Silex now, but you could certainly do some of the other guys, and maybe even introduce some new characters as well. I think it would be, like, a really fun thing to do, and just have, like, the different levels where you get to play as different either hunters or maybe Galactic Federation members or something like that. But I think that there's definitely, like, a cool story that you can tell in there while kind of expanding on, and, like, these hunters don't even have, like, you could tell a story of, like, Trace on his home planet, and maybe that's your introduction to Trace, or Spire trying to find his people, whatever, right? Like, I think you can build up a lot of the mythology in Metroid by just having these worlds where you can play as these characters and see these worlds, and they don't have to be gigantic. They can be regular first-person shooter levels, but I think that's just a lot more effective in kind of getting across what a lot of these characters are about, rather than their intros in the opening cutscenes in Hunters.
Right. Andy, I know you're not the biggest Sonic fan, but, like, when you pitch that, the first thing that I think of is, like, the Sonic Adventure style single player campaigns, where you have your Sonic story, you got your Tails story, you got your Shadow story, your Knuckles story, and most of these levels are kind of reskins of, like, everyone else's levels. Maybe there's a couple of unique levels in there, but then occasionally you'll have, like, maybe a team up level or a boss fight where some of these stories start to intersect together, and you have to play everyone's story to kind of get the full context of what's going on. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking of when you're bringing this up, and I think that's a really cool way to tell a story. Another weird tangent, kind of reminds me of, like, Pulp Fiction as well, where you kind of have 2 different stories that are going on that really start to coalesce once you get near the end. Obviously, I'm certainly not comparing Metroid Prime Hunters remake to a Tarantino movie, but yeah, I think I'm a big fan of, like, having multiple stories come together and adding new information, that we didn't have before. I think it's a really cool way to tell a story. So heck yeah, bring that into Metroid.
You know what I will say? So, side story here. I was visiting my sister yesterday and seeing my 4-year-old nephew and my 2-year-old twin nieces, and they wanted to show how fast they could run. And so my nephew's just like, he stands up and he's like, I'm Sonic, and my 2-year-old niece is like, I'm Tails, and then the other one's like, I'm Knuckles, and they just start running around the kitchen island. It was the most adorable thing I've ever seen. So I'm cool with Sonic right now. He's my
Okay.
guy. He's my guy. Yeah, so those are like the kind of the big things that I would want to see, and like obviously like I would want to see some elements like I would want to see platforming in my Metroid Prime Hunters remake. I wouldn't want that to completely go away. I would I probably would still keep a lot of the like the morph ball puzzles that you saw in Metroid Prime Hunters. What I would not do is I would not have like the 3 keys in each level that are required to finish the level. I definitely wouldn't have a boss battle at the end of each level, and I certainly wouldn't have the same boss battle for multiple encounters as well. But I would like to keep... I guess you kind of sold me a little bit. Like I would like... I guess if I could find a way to do scanning, I'd like to keep that. I think it just has to be something different, though. Like... I don't know if I'd want to do it through the visor, or maybe it just happens automatically, because like it feels like to me like a lot of the scan material in Metroid Prime Hunters is there because they thought it should be, rather than it adds value to the game itself. And I probably would say the same thing about scanning enemies too. I think I would just have like a general like bestiary where you find a new enemy and it's just automatically added. Like again, like we're just going full first person shooter. I think we want to leave some of the Metroid Prime elements actually out, and I think that would enhance it. So I would probably take... I would take away most of the scanning, but I would have a way where the things that... like the information that you would get by scanning just comes automatically to you.
Maybe. I would have to think more about it, because again, if the scan visor were to return, I would want it to function similarly to its multiplayer component, and that's kind of where I'm thinking, like, how would I use the scan visor in multiplayer? There was the ability in the Metroid Prime 2 multiplayer where you could get the scan visor and you could hack another person's suit and make them lose damage. I'd probably have it be a bit more robust than that, though. But that's kind of how I would develop the scan visor, is like, hey, how are we going to do this in multiplayer? And then how can we transfer that multiplayer component over to the single player in a fun and interesting way? Rather than just putting the Metroid Prime scan visor in this one mode and abandoning it completely in this other equally important mode.
Mm-hmm. I guess I'm just of the opinion, like, in my perspective from Metroid Prime Hunters, like, there are some things in the game that are there because they thought they should be, because it was a Metroid Prime game. And I'm kind of like, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I'm going to use Federation Force as another example. But, like, you know, credit to Next Level. They were like, scanning in this game just is not intuitive in multiplayer, in single player, and so we're just not going to do it. And I think that, like, you don't miss anything from that game by not having scanning. And I would say the same thing about Metroid Prime Hunters remake. If anything, I would maybe have like some kind of, I don't know, sub weapon that you could load up, you shoot it, and it's like one of those little probes or whatever that has like the scan thing that comes around. Like any enemy that's in there just gets added to your logbook or like whatever, right? I don't know what that would do for, like, I don't know what scanning would do for you in multiplayer in general. Maybe you could expand on that, but like, because like I wouldn't want to pause my game to check out my logbook because then I'm gonna get clipped. But
right. Yeah, I feel like it would have to like activate things in real time. Like maybe because like another thing that like the scan visor does is, you know, you have scan puzzles. You're not just like adding, you know, lore entries to your logbook or getting that's a part of it, but like, you know, you also, you know, can activate machinery, deactivate force fields and stuff like that. And maybe that's something you could also incorporate. Again, it's something I would have to think more about, but there is also a gameplay context for the scan visor as well. And also, I will say, while I generally agree with you regarding the scan visor's implementation in Metroid Prime, I also think, in Metroid Prime Hunters, I also think Hunters might have my favorite scan visor puzzle in the entire series, on Arctera, where you have to scan the ship deck portal through the force field and then go back to the ship and then teleport to the other side. That's like kind of an ingenious way of like implementing the scan visor. And so yeah, I'm kind of thinking about stuff like that when I go like, yeah, I don't know if I want to let go of that. I think there's a lot of cool things you can do with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, sure. I guess I'm just like, if it fits, like we can do it, but I'm not going to like completely bust down and like I'm not going to overthink it. Like if it's not working, I think it's not working.
Sure.
And I guess I'm just like, I don't know. I don't think you lose a whole lot by not having it. I was tempted even to say like the alt forms, if I'm being totally honest with you. Like, I don't think that every hunter needs an alt form. Like Samus levels, totally, right? Like that makes total sense. And maybe like if this is a Hunters remake and you've got a lot of those same characters coming back, those have already been established. So like, yep, let's run with those. But if you're introducing some new characters, like I don't think every character needs an alt form. You can kind of craft the stages around it, and that could be a competitive advantage in multiplayer as well. Like maybe like Samus has the morph ball, so she's harder to hit and faster when she's in it, but character X has, I don't know, some other kind of attribute that makes up for that discrepancy.
Well, that I don't agree with, because again, going back to the multiplayer component, all of those maps are designed with like alt form paths in general, and so all of a sudden, you have a large portion of the cast that you can utilize that, and then some of the cast that can't. All of a sudden, that starts to like, that starts to butt heads with the game design a little bit. Mm-hmm. So that in general, that's one I don't. Scan Visor, I could definitely see like, hey, if we can't. We don't want to force this thing. If we can't figure out a way to make it work, we can't make it work, whatever. But the alt forms, I feel like we already have a really good template there. That's one where it's like, I don't see the point in throwing it out at that point, especially because, again, those alt forms are like what makes like the Metroid Prime Hunters, one of the parts that makes a Metroid Prime Hunters experience so unique in a multiplayer setting, as opposed to any other shooter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. What else would you like to see in this hypothetical remake? Maybe from like a multiplayer perspective, because that's not really my area of expertise.
Right. Yeah, so one thing, and we talked about this on the last few episodes, and it's not something that I've really thought about before, but I think what really makes Metroid Prime Hunters multiplayer so fascinating to me is that it isn't, on one hand, it does take so much inspiration from, lots of relevant multiplayer shooters at the time, most notably Halo Combat Evolved and Quake. Those are like the two. There's a few others in there, but like Quake and Halo are like the big games that it's taking influence from in its multiplayer. And yet at the same time, it weaves so much unique Metroid elements in its map design, particularly in some of the larger maps where it does kind of feel like you're exploring this maze at a time, which you don't really get in a lot of in a lot of other multiplayer shooters. You usually have like very clear, visible sight lines and whatnot, or you have a very large open playground space where you can view a lot of people. But yeah, the Hunter's experience, maybe you'll have like the center where you can have like large sight lines, but then you'll have a lot of stuff going around, and then maybe some underground pathing where it starts to become more maze-like, and you can use that for flanking opportunities, and that's a really unique aspect of Metroid Prime Hunters multiplayer that I absolutely would want to see carried over. And then on top of that, and this is something that I brought up on the show a lot of times, is nowadays the concept of a hero shooter is super normalized. A lot of multiplayer shooters have these hero mechanics where you'll have a cast of characters, and they'll have like an exclusive ultimate ability, for example, that's that makes that specific character unique. And Hunters, I don't know if it's the very first game to do it, but it definitely it comes into play before a lot of mainstream examples, like even Team Fortress 2 came out the following year. Obviously, Overwatch is the big one that a lot of people think of nowadays, or Marvel Rivals. But yeah, Hunters did it before those games, where each of these Hunters has not only the unique weapon, but their alt form as well. And so yeah, I think what makes it so cool is that on one hand, Metroid Prime Hunters feels like a retro shooter, and yet it also has these mechanics that would later become, a huge part of like modern mainstream multiplayer games, while also having that unique Metroid twist as well. And so it's, it really provides this really interesting experience. And I think on modern hardware, capitalizing on all of those categories. The retro multiplayer, obviously, we don't have a lot of arena multiplayer experiences like Quake and Halo anymore. So reviving that in a sense would, in and of itself feel really unique. having those modern capabilities kind of like give you a little bit of a bridge between the modern games and Hunters, and then of course having that Metroid twist to really make it feel like a Metroid game. That's kind of what I envision, as this penultimate Metroid multiplayer experience.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would certainly love, because like I do feel like I wish I would have got to play like some of the multiplayer back in the day. So I would love to experience that in a new way. Like I don't play a lot of like multiplayer first person shooters anymore, particularly games like Overwatch or like any of those. They're just kind of like not my thing. I think they're but that's okay.
Right.
But I would certainly try like it with a Metroid skin. So I would be really excited for that. So yeah, like I think that there would be like a lot of potential in revisiting this concept. I really would just want them to, like, if you're going to do it, like really commit to it. And I think there are some things that you could also do to like keep it that Metroid Prime experience. I think obviously one of the biggest things that people deride Federation Force for is the art style and how just like tonally different it is from the series. So like there are some things like you could do, like invest in your art style, your graphics, your hardware, your performance in this game, and that will kind of hopefully prop it up as well to have some more familiarity with Metroid Prime Hunters, or Metroid Prime series rather. So yeah, and I don't know if Nintendo will ever do this. I mean probably not would be my guess.
Yeah,
but
probably not, but it's just
hey,
a fun exercise more than anything. Yeah.
I really would like, I always really wanted to play as the other Hunters. Like even in Metroid Prime 4, I was like, I don't know why, but I was like, man, I bet you we're going to get a level where we can play as Silex. And we know how that went. It did not happen. Maybe it still could in the future. Who knows? But it certainly didn't happen in Metroid Prime 4. So I think that there's like a lot of like potential for that idea and like doing this concept again in kind of like an HD modern environment. Like I just think that'd be really special.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely I've always said that Metroid Prime Hunters is a game that had, it was ahead of its time to its detriment almost, because the hardware wasn't able to fully realize a lot of those ideas that the game had at the time. And then also the development cycle on that was super rushed. I mean, I think the first Hunt demo on the DS, the game wasn't even in development for a year by the time that demo released for the DS. So there was a huge time crunch to get that thing out the door as well. And even though I love the low poly art style of Hunters, I'm a big sucker for like old school retro low poly art games, and I think it looks like really cool in the Metroid context. I also would, obviously love to see, a more updated modern look, like, hey, what if Metroid, basically what if Metroid Prime was a multiplayer experience? Like, what if a game that gorgeous you could play with other people essentially? And yeah, of course, like, absolutely sign me up for that.
Well, anything that we want to pitch for hypothetical Metroid Prime Hunters remake before we hit the old dusty trail here?
Actually, Metroid Prime 4 kind of just reminded me of something as well. I mean, obviously, Metroid Prime 4, we're all in agreement, is an absolutely gorgeous game. But one thing we're also kind of in agreement on is that a lot of the areas feel derivative of areas that we've seen, not just in other Metroid games, but in Metroid Prime games as well. And I think going back to your original concept of this being, rather than taking place on a single planet, rather you're doing an individual self-contained level-to-level experience, I think that gives you a lot more opportunities for diverse art styles across all of these levels, because for all we know, every single level could theoretically take place on a completely different planet, space station, dimension, you name it. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there to really just stretch out the creative possibilities when it comes to art there. So if you're going to do something like that, having a wide variety of multiplayer maps and a wide variety of individual levels, I think that's a fantastic opportunity to just stretch out your artistic talents.
Yeah, like totally. Like you could see like all of these different planets, and it also, if you do like Hunter specific segmented levels, it allows you to tell a story that's not necessarily a linear story either. Like you could experience a flashback level and play I don't know, the last days of Spire's planet before it blows up or whatever happened to it, right? Like, there's a lot of opportunity for this, and I think that would be just like a really, like, one of my critiques about Metroid Prime Hunters, well, one of my many critiques is that, like, the hunters themselves, like, have basically no character involved, right? And I think that, like, you achieve more character when you play as that character. Like, you inherently just put some of yourself and by seeing those experiences through that character's eyes. So, like, if you are playing as Silex in a stealth level where you steal Galactic Federation tech, you're just like, man, this guy really is like a stealth badass, and I just did that. Or you can see if you're playing as I don't know, like Weevil, like, oh, this is the inner workings of the space pirates, and like whatever, right? Like, you can get that experience, and I think it would be a really cool way to do it. I do think like we've tried it once, we've tried it twice, we've tried it 3 times. Not sure if fourth time is going to be the charm, but hey, it's fun to daydream about what could have been. Maybe what still could be. I don't know.
Well, I just even think back to like the introduction movie when you first start Hunters, and I think like, there isn't, that area that Weevil is like racing down in his hover bike while he's being chased by what feels like, police on whatever planet he's on. Like, we don't really see any sort of area like that in the final game. That's like what I think of as like, ooh, that would be like a really cool area, to add to the single player campaign. And you could do that for just a whole level, and then that's the last of it.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully one day this comes back. I don't know. Not holding my breath. But 20 years of Metroid Prime Hunters. It's been a long. I will say one thing that really gave me a lot of appreciation, more appreciation for this game, is like writing the walkthrough for it, writing the guide when we had it. I'm sure you would say the same about the single player, and just like, I don't know, getting to see, like, it certainly does have its charms. It does have its quirks as well. So, I still, like, I like playing the game. I even like playing it on my 3DS and not necessarily on just like other means as well, where you can kind of tailor the controls a little bit more to your liking. So, as much as I kind of said like a lot of stuff that I didn't like about Metroid Prime Hunters, I never got a chance to kind of talk about like the 20-year anniversary and kind of just give it its due, right? So I did want to say, like, if nothing else, like, Hunters certainly took a big swing, and I appreciate it for it. And you're probably right; it was probably too ahead of its time, maybe to its detriment, but I really appreciate that it did it anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's definitely, I mean, we got at least a couple more anniversaries coming up this year as well. It's actually ridiculous how many Metroid anniversaries we have coming up this year. Hunters is just the start of something great to come. But it was fun, like, reminiscing about this game. Obviously, working on that guide and kind of revisiting a lot of my childhood memories and kind of recontextualizing a lot of that. It definitely made me. It definitely made me. I've always appreciated Hunters, but it definitely made me appreciate it in a new light as well. It's a really fun time. I dig it.
Well, there it is. Metroid Prime Hunters 20th anniversary officially coming to an end as we enter April. Already, Doom. I can't believe it. But yes, the Super Mario Bros. Galaxy movie is out. We would love to hear what everybody thinks. Do we see Sam? Give us your Samus percentage. Do we see Samus in any fashion in this movie? And probably post-credit scene is the only realistic option here.
I mean, we did have that very obscure Metroid Prime Easter egg in the first movie. It was one of the planets from the Prime 1 hologram, and I cannot remember for the life of me what it was, but
it was like the star map of right in Phendrana, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the hologram project, it was one of those planets. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely not something I would put a 0 on at this point. I don't know if I'd give it a very high score, but yeah.
I mean, I think like 5% has got to be your max, right? Like the most optimistic has got to be 5%. Let me split the difference, Doom. I'm gonna go 2.5% that Samus shows up.
2.5. I'll nudge up just a tiny bit and go 3.
Oh, okay. Living dangerously. I do think there's going to be one other Nintendo cameo. Because, like, for everybody saying, like, Star Fox is, like, a spoiler, Star Fox I don't think is that big reveal in the Mario movie. And maybe Samus isn't either, to be fair. But I don't know who is. But
would for us, obviously, but...
Dude, I could see, like, the post-credit scene actually being, like, Wario or Waluigi or both.
That's kind of what I'm expecting. Something similar to kind of the Yoshi reveal last time.
Yeah, I could see that. All right, everybody. Well, there it is. We are going to get out of here. Thank you so much for listening to us talk Metroid Prime Hunters, Nintendo, and the Super Mario Bros. Movie. We would love to know what you think about the movie, about our pitches. Join us over on Discord. Get in on the Metroid action. And, of course, visit OmegaMetroid.com for all of your Metroid needs. We have guides, we have maps, we have news, we have thought pieces. We have so much stuff there if you are a Metroid fan. So get on over there, OmegaMetroid.com. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts. Go like, subscribe, recommend, rate, review, all that good stuff. If you got a Metroid fan in your life, tell them where they can get their weekly Metroid fix. Check us out over on Blue Sky at Spateri316, at Doom and at Omega Metroid. And if you want to check these podcasts out in video form, check out our YouTube page where Doom is uploading these and making them look real pretty every single week. You can get involved in the community over on YouTube as well. So make sure that you are doing that, and give us a subscription too while you're there. That'd be really cool. We'd really appreciate that. And lastly, if you want to take your Metroid love to the next level, by God, we have a Patreon for you. Patreon.com/SPNet. Gooey Plays Metroid is continuing with Season 2. Goo is playing Metroid 2, Return of Samus, and we are about halfway through the game, and we're going to finish it up next month, so we're going to finish it up in May. If you join on the Patreon, you can get your questions in, you can come along for the journey, and you can check out the backlog of shows that we have there as well. There's like 2 years worth of great Metroid area ranking shows for you to enjoy. So check it out, patreon.com/SPNet. That's it, my friends. We are going to get out of here. So until next week, everybody, take care.